Does that go straight to here? Starting. Oh, hey. Oh, I didn't think at all about nuggets. Whatever.
Hello, Internet.
All right.
Alrighty.
So you want to do some introductions?
Survey. Okay.
All right.
Hey, we got sound. All right. Yeah, I feel like I need to make another drink, so you do all the business.
Okay, so we just watched Westworld episode 7, Les Écorchés, or something, French, because I don't speak it.
Close enough.
Obviously it is the skeleton crew here. It's me and Andrew on the couch. Mark is over on the chair.
I'm over here. They never point the camera on me when I sit over here.
Well, we have an empty couch, so you could also come sit on the couch.
I
but
know,
but you didn't want to be on camera when you were over there.
Yeah.
No, that was for Walking Dead, for that terrible show.
Anyway, so we are going to talk about this episode. I have to come up with nuggets, but I'm waiting for Andrew to remake his drink so that we can do our full introduction.
Sit down, Kitty.
Hi, baby.
All right, so I'm Andrew.
I'm Kate.
That's Mark. We are the Knights of the Drunk Watch,
And
now our talk begins. Oh, and there are 3 people watching.
Awesome. That's as many as people who are on
Who's
camera,
that? Andrew,
so.
Zach, and Audie?
I can't see, so.
They just have to start talking. Alright, so I want to start with... I'm confused about the Bernard timeline.
Okay.
So let's go through it in chronological order.
Okay.
So,
Good luck.
right? So he runs away with Charlotte, right? Him and Charlotte are in the same place immediately after the gala.
Right, so that's in the what I call the rebellion timeline.
So rebellion timeline. Then they go to the place where they get judged on his DNA and he gets deemed worthy.
Right, they go to that side lab. That
Good. And then she runs away from him during an encounter with other hostiles of some
they
sort.
get separated.
Okay, so then they get separated.
And he has Abernathy.
Charlotte, so they find Abernathy, but then Charlotte runs away. So Charlotte runs away from Bernard. And then that's when, does Bernard run into Dolores?
Yeah, and that's when Bernard gets to the fort with Abernathy, where Dolores discovers that her father is alive, but screwed up.
And then Clem drags him to Elsie.
Yes, Clem drags
Bernard
to Elsie.
That's all she's done this season
when
is
Charlotte
drag people.
is able to get Abernathy back.
Okay. And then we have then Elsie and Bernard head to the Mesa because they go to the Cradle. So after they do whatever they do
Right.
in that
So yeah.
side,
So and Elsie is somehow held captive in the cave, which is the back door of the super secret lab.
to the Papa Delos'
Where Delos is
lab.
and where Ford had his copy made.
Okay, so he gets his copy there,
Mm-hmm.
and Ford's copy there, and then they go to the Cradle.
Yes.
See, my confusion is... Okay, so still talking through it. They go to the Cradle. He finds out that Ford is still alive.
Yeah. So Bernard had gone to get Ford's copy before the rebellion and had put it in the Cradle.
Okay.
Yeah. Then when he goes in there with Elsie, that's where he discovers that, I've been here before.
And
he
I
has the
murdered
memory
everybody.
of doing it. And we also find out that's the same lab
We
as
are
Papa
so
Delos, who's going crazy. And then they go to the Cradle because that's where he realizes what he took must be
Ford's thing. So now he is Ford. So I guess the only thing that I don't understand is how do we get from... No, this doesn't make sense though.
Right?
No.
Because how do we get from Bernard has Ford and the Mesa's been attacked to now we're all on the beach again?
Well, that's where we haven't connected yet.
They're about to go
So-
Because then they find Bernard again on the beach.
That's
and
11
then
days later.
Colonel Sanders is there with Stubbs.
Right.
And they bring him back to Charlotte. Charlotte starts waterboarding him.
Right.
My big question is, like, so I guess the assumption is Ford must now be gone because she can control him. And humans haven't been able to control hosts since the rebellion.
Right.
But she can say analysis
Well,
get
Bernard seems to be royally fucked up. So
Well, ever since he was leaking the juice out of his ear.
Well,
that's because he shot himself in the head.
Yeah, no, but I think ever since Ford put himself into Bernard's brain, because I feel like that's how Ford basically escaped the cradle by putting himself into Bernard's brain. Because during the attack on the Mesa, he took over Bernard to shoot everybody. And I think that just, like, totally freaked Bernard's brain out.
Hey, if Anthony Hopkins penetrated my brain, I'd be pretty freaked out, too.
Yeah, just seeing him always. Yeah, I mean, I guess that was my big question is, one, how is she controlling him? And then I was convinced that waterboarded Bernard was happening at the same time as Cradle Bernard, but I guess not.
No, those are two different. And what? Because
So
now
how many days? Like, how long has this been going on? We still have how much to get to Bernard washing up and all of the hosts washing up. All of the hosts still have to die.
Well, let's see. I would say we've.
Well, didn't they say they were on their way there, or they're about to go to there?
Yeah, but everybody's been on their way to the Valley of whatever for, since we started this season, but that's because they've been jumping around.
I mean, I would say it's been at least 3 or 4 days, maybe halfway through.
So maybe we
the
still
11
have
days,
we have a whole
because
other week.
We know that we have the night of the galas, and then we also know that they spent a night in Shogun Land.
Yeah.
At least one night there. So, and actually before they got there it was night. So that's at least 2 days.
Okay.
Well, I mean, how much time are they, is it taking them to travel from one location
They
to
got
another?
horses. They're fine. And I do agree, at one point Mark during this episode was like, I thought I finally understood what was going on. No, they lulled us into a false sense of security.
I mean, even rewatching the first season, I still felt confused, but then watching through this current season, I finally felt like I was understanding all the different timelines, and I understood what was going on. And then, if last week didn't do it, this week's episode, certainly, I'm lost. So, good thing Andrew pays attention, because I'm
we could probably do our blog again, because we'll have to rewatch all
that.
Yeah.
So, and I guess the big thing is that we could talk. Well, let's talk about other smaller things. So Stubbs is starting to become a slightly interesting character because he's not fully on board with what Strand and Hale are doing, and I think he was part of the reason why I got confused by the timeline as well.
Wait, which one is Stubbs?
Hemsworth.
The blonde head of security.
And,
the older Hemsworth brother.
He starts to question I don't know what's going on. I'm not sure about Strand or Hale. They seem to have a not super good.
Well, and I think part of him is confusing because y'all had mentioned it one of the days I wasn't here. Is he? When we were in the Strand timeline in the post 11 days, post rebellion, he was always off to the side, but he wasn't really involved.
Yeah, we questioned whether we
you questioned if he was even there, but I saw that he was there, but he was always just to the back and a little to the left,
Muscle, yeah.
But then when we finally had his that's what the Ghost Nation captured him. We finally got the answer to that he started coming up to the front. Because there's still something about the Ghost Nation capturing him and a bunch of humans.
Yeah.
And then letting him go.
Which it sounds like we're going to get some Ghost Nation answers next
we're gonna
episode.
Well, and it looks like from the preview that we're going to kind of figure out the origin of the Ghost Nation because we saw Arnold dead, we saw Ford dead. I mean, they witnessed all of this, I guess. So,
let's see. Let me have side goons, whatever. Maeve's whole thing. Like, we get a little bit of Maeve and a little bit of William in this episode. Or a little
I feel
bit
like
of
we
Maeve
were
and
finally
Vlad.
getting to Maeve's, like, point. Her purpose was to go in there and save her daughter. And then what happened? Oh no, her daughter gets taken and she gets shot, and now they're separated.
And she can't deal with the fact that she wants to take revenge on old Father William.
Yeah.
So now Maeve seems like she's just right back where she started.
I would say
Except
the only
now
good news.
she's full of holes and dying on a table.
Yeah,
with
but
her
obviously that's
sidekick,
not
Sizemore.
Sizemore.
Which,
Well, the thing is okay. So Sizemore got picked up by a team. Well, Felix and Sylvester.
I think maybe they're just like not on camera right now.
Right.
They were on horses
they were
when he
with
was like, "I'm
him,
calling."
but I
Isn't
think
that
they-
what happened?
Right. Yeah, they were with
Yeah.
him when he said, "I'm calling for help." So I'm sure like he's gonna run around the corner and they're gonna be cowering behind their car and he'd like fix
Yeah.
her. But
Hopefully.
because I think the other thing is Maeve. I mean, other than being a star of the show, she has a reason to still be alive because even though she doesn't believe it, I think her daughter is in the safest place she can be right now
With the Ghost Nation.
with the Ghost Nation.
Yeah.
Well, especially if next week we find out, oh, they're really just misunderstood.
Well,
They're not as bad
I
as
think
they-
their story was bad, but I think their actual purpose in this place after Ford's rebellion is either its own thing or somehow saving, because it's weird.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm curious about that. So Ford, Bernard. So I guess kind of the biggest question is what I guess there are two for me. Is like what is Ford's end goal and what is Hale trying to do with all of it?
That's confusing. I
Well-
don't know.
Well, it sounds like. I mean, the Delos goal, which I think is what Hale is working towards, is immortality. By being able to copy yourself and then make yourself immortal, which is what Delos was trying to, Papa Delos was trying to do, but they never could achieve it.
Right.
They could never achieve fidelity.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because they kept going in William kept having that same scene with
Yeah.
him over and over.
Until he was super old and then he just said he gave up.
So then I guess, like, that didn't work because they were using an actual memory download to create Papa Delos' new person. But it seems like Bernard, who is supposed to be Arnold, like they did all the tests with Ford and Dolores to get fidelity based off of the memory of Arnold.
Well, and I don't feel like Ford answered the question because he talked about that if
Lightning.
Yeah, it is.
Ford could only survive in the cradle, or I guess maybe in Bernard's head. But if he was downloaded into a body, either he would degrade or he would go nuts. It seemed like, there was a difference between what William was trying to do and what Ford achieved with Arnold. That fidelity wasn't the answer. Fidelity is what Delos was going for, and it doesn't work.
Sorry,
But Ford did something else.
what do they mean by fidelity?
I thought he was about to explain that too, and then he didn't. I was like, yeah, what did that mean?
Well, just truth to the original.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's the simplest explanation for what they're looking for is truth to the original, because they had questions they had asked Papa Delos at the beginning that they had to ask him again as a robot to check for fidelity, and that's also what Dolores was doing in her interviews with Bernard.
But she was doing it it sounds like she was doing it in the cradle.
Oh, yeah?
And that the cradle is somehow a stable environment that they were able to perfect Bernard, whereas Papa Delos they were trying to perfect in the host.
So you think the idea is if they are in the cradle, which is not real, but then, okay, so I have another question. is that if during the Mesa siege, all of the hosts were going down to the Cradle to get their backups, what do you think the point is for that?
They weren't. That's what they thought they were doing. Angela went down there and destroyed the Cradle because Dolores said, without their backups, that would be their complete freedom.
So
and
they
I guess,
don't want their backups.
And I guess because they, if they do die, they can't be reset. They can't be brought back and restarted. So they live or die.
So now that the Cradle, that's like killing the Cylon resurrection ship. Like now they can't reboot.
Right.
Okay.
So if they do die, they're done. Just like any other mortal being.
So, and in the Cradle was where they could perfect. Do you think if they had but I mean, uploading someone's actual core, like they have actual Ford, digital Ford in the Cradle, so they don't need to perfect that at all.
Yeah, Ford's core. That's the thing is I don't know that Bernard wasn't created from a copy of Arnold in the same way.
No, Bernard was created from Ford and Dolores' memory of Arnold.
Yeah.
That's so complicated.
I know, and so I guess, God, and this is just talking through it and not having any answers.
Careful, don't shake the table.
But I just don't see what type of construction they would do in the Cradle that they could perfect, because even if they have a perfect memory copy in the Cradle, they still have to download it and get that memory copy to work in a host, which seems to be the difficulty, because they can have a perfect copy of Ford in the Cradle, but he would degrade in the host.
Right.
So I don't see how it would be useful to perfect someone in the Cradle.
Well, maybe not. I mean, again, because since Bernard was created from memories, he's basically a very specifically designed host.
Yeah.
So he can be then downloaded into Bernard, and Bernard can do his thing. Whereas...
Which is probably also why he could pass whatever the test was, and they all thought he was human.
And it may be, too, that, Ford has downloaded himself into Bernard to, either because he knows it will last long enough to complete his end game, or since he's not really... Maybe it's also possible that because he's in Bernard's mind, it's like being in the Cradle. And so he's not... He won't degrade in the same way.
I had no idea.
I mean, he certainly has, at this point, he has control of Bernard. And then when Charlotte comes in, because right before he woke up, we saw all the flashes that had led up to that point.
Yeah.
So.
And then.
But the thing is there's that flash of him taking Ford's brain. I feel like he told them to go to that place, but that was like part of the story of the story that Ford wants them to all go there, not that Abernathy's going to be there.
So we last see Bernard, because Bernard is like the only string that I can clutch to in order to get this timeline to even function a little bit in my brain. So we last see Bernard typing on some sort of computer in the map room.
Well,
with Ford instructing him during a battle.
Ford instructed him to shut down the Mesa, basically.
Yeah.
And then, that was during that battle. I think that was the last thing we saw from this point of the rebellion. We still haven't seen how Ford gets... how Bernard gets to the beach.
Yeah, and the reason that I'm asking is because at no point since Charlotte... I guess it makes sense... No, because that whole timeline, Charlotte had Abernathy, and she didn't have Bernard then. At that point,
So at that point,
Bernard was in the Cradle.
Bernard was missing.
She had Abernathy.
Yeah, when Bernard was in the Cradle, Bernard was not She didn't know he was there.
And then she ran away with Stubbs, and Dolores took the Abernathy's core.
Right.
Because that's what she had in her hand when she was talking to Maeve. And so, my question is, why does Charlotte even think that, like, does Bernard even know where the core is? Because, as of right now, Bernard is shutting the Mesa down. Dolores is on a horse riding somewhere with the core, and they haven't met in that time.
Not since Fort whatever.
Yeah, not since Clem, dragged him off. So why would Charlotte even think that he knows?
Because he's a host.
Because he can just connect.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think, because first they think one of them, as a human, killed Teresa and knows something, and then they discover it's Bernard, who's a host, has been a wolf in sheep's clothing this whole time, and so that he must know more.
Look, it's a crown.
It's beautiful. Okay. So then, do you think that Bernard is lying or confused about what core he's talking about?
He seems confused about everything. But he could be lying, too.
I think him telling them that is a subterfuge. I don't know if lying is, I feel, is in the real world, because I think he told them that specifically to make them go there. I mean, yes, I don't know that. Is he giving them information that he thinks is true or that he knows is false? That is a question, because Bernard seems to be everybody's tool.
Right.
So
he probably thinks it's true, but I don't think he
might think if he's still Ford's tool, he might be giving him that information because he thinks that's the answer, but it's really Ford trying to get those people there.
Two characters in one body is never going to be easy.
Yeah. Well, but I think when we connect the dot from shutting down the Mesa to the beach, I think that will, once that is connected, I think we'll know exactly who's in control.
Yeah. Because I just don't think that she would be able to shut him down.
But hey, Dr. Lee. Dr. Lee's joined us.
Sorry, it's just a small group today. I just don't think that she'd be able to get him into an analysis mode unless he's faking that too.
Yeah.
If Ford was in there.
I mean, unless he's allowing them to do that, to access information that will lead them down. He's leading them by the nose, so to speak.
And then I guess the last question that we kind of talked a little bit about, but so what is Delos / Charlotte's whole, like, if their goal is to, so their goal is immortality. So we've talked about that. So then what is Ford trying to do with the same information at this point as Digital Ford?
I feel like Ford is trying. He might be trying to
burn it all down.
Burn it all down.
I mean, maybe that's what he was telling with that story about, like, the first library that burned down and they lost all the.
Right, but the fire became its own story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and also, I mean, the thing is, we also had Ford showing Bernard how the park was used to study people, but then it was like, were they trying to if they didn't know what was happening, were they trying to recreate those people so they could take their place? Like, how crazy is this? Were they just trying to study people so they would have information? I felt like when Williams set it up with Papa Delos, it sounded like they come to the park to have a good time, and only we learn things about them that we can use against them. Without them even realizing that, where we got it from.
Who knows? But it might go even further than that, and that's what they ultimately are trying to do is, well, if we could just take them, kill them, but then recreate them,
we won't even need blackmail.
Well, yeah,
right.
Well,
important people like politicians and.
Because I mean, I have not seen the movie Future World, which was the sequel to Westworld, but I felt like it has something to do with that too.
Maybe that's what we do on our week off.
Yeah.
Oh God! Remember after that debacle of trying to watch the original one?
Ugh. I think that's everything.
So, Dr. Lee, do you have any questions? Any thoughts about the episode? Because we've been talking in circles about it for the however long we've been online.
Yeah, we've had no one to just give us the answers, which is what y'all usually do. Yeah, I mean, I'm baffled. I'm just confused. I don't even have any, like, I'm excited to get more information on the Ghost Nation, but also, like, oh, that's a whole nother storyline.
Yeah, well, I think...
Hey,
but I think,
Mark, can you wait a second? Thank you.
I think the Ghost Nation is somehow... I'm confused as you. The Ghost Nation, I think, is going to be kind of a connective tissue. And we're in episode 7, so it's like... That's where they lay... Episode 7 is where they lay out the last few strings... And then they start to knit it all together for the last 3 episodes. So
okay. I mean, this is episode 7, so these were our last few strings before.
Yeah, these were our last few strings, because before we start connecting all the timelines and finding out all the information to where it makes sense, to where it comes to a head, you know, at the end.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see, I guess.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, if the lake that Bernard didn't know where that lake came from is actually the valley flooded, I mean, the story still continues after that. So,
right.
So yeah, my prediction is that this mysterious lake was actually the valley that everyone's coming to, and somehow it gets flooded, and so that's how, like, Teddy's body is in there, because anyone who didn't get out of the valley
is dead.
Is
drowned.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if the Cradle really was everyone's backups, if Teddy's dead, I guess Teddy's dead. I mean, of course, if it's all in your brain.
I refuse to believe that.
Yeah, but it's all in Abernathy too, right?
I don't think he has all the backups. He has, I think,
all the guest data.
Or he has all the programming, like how to create it. But I suppose if you get shot, your brain is still in there, so I don't know why they couldn't take the brain out. They wouldn't be resetting them, but you could take the brain out and put it in a new body.
Yeah.
That's probably just far more complicated than just backing
Yeah,
up.
so... the timelines aren't really confusing. Just the season feels like mystery for the sake of it. Also, too many action scenes.
Listen, just because you're a doctor and can keep track of all these timelines doesn't mean that they're not confusing.
Well, I mean, to me, the confusing part is, you know, trying to make sure that, like, earlier we were like, wait, there are 2 Bernards, because you couldn't, we're having trouble finding out, wait, which timeline are we in?
Well, and especially because, like, they switched so quickly from, like, Charlotte interrogating Bernard to Charlotte with Abernathy and everything was getting attacked.
Yeah.
That it felt like the same...
In the same location,
in the same
basically.
moment. In the same location. So I was like, oh, this is the same moment. And we're hearing the same shit on the walkie-talkie in both places. So, 2 Bernards.
I think the problem, not the problem, the challenge of the season for them is the first season they had these 2 timelines, and the way they set it up, you didn't know that they were like this. You thought they were like side by side. So
because you thought they were all
happening at once.
Different characters.
Yeah, it's different characters at the same time. So they, you know, now the mystery, the surprise, the twist, they have to almost force because we already know about how different timelines run, and they eventually all connect to each other. So that's not a surprise. So
they've done that before. So
yeah, they've got to come up with another surprise for us.
All right, are we good?
All right, I guess we're good. You know, Dr. Lee, you've been our faithful Westworld fan. What Rachel was?
I mean, our fan for everything.
Walking Dead.
Walking Dead, yeah.
Yes, we haven't seen her for Westworld, so she may not watch Westworld, but she watched Walking Dead and American Horror Story, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah, do you have anything else to say, Dr. Lee, before we sign off?
I guess I'm going to close out.
Or do you have any questions?
Yeah.
Like, did we talk about something before you got here that you want our opinions? I was even here for the movie. Yeah, Dr. Lee was here when we live streamed the movie. So
awesome. Quality.
So I know there's a delay, so I'm going to give him a second to...
Okay, I'll start doing the shutdowns and then... So if you liked what you listened to, please subscribe on our YouTube channel. Is it still Zach Baxter, or is it now like Nights of the Drunk Watch?
No, we're on Zach Baxter's channel. Nights of the Drunk Watches are if it gets shut down channel.
I thought he changed, but yeah, so we're on Zach
Or
Baxter.
I don't know what he did.
I don't know what he did. I don't know. We're Nights of the Drunk Watch. Just Google either of those. We're also on iTunes with our podcast. If you can't watch this, you can listen to it like in the car and listen to us yell at each other. Feel free to hit subscribe and also hit the bell icon so that you know when we're going live for these discussions. And
Patreon,
we have some exclusive stuff. We have a few different podcasts that we do, and we have some exclusives for those podcasts that are on Patreon. So even if you just give us
throw us
$1 a month, you get access to all of that content.
Because we got to pay to go back to Comic Palooza next year.
Yes.
Which we were a big hit again.
It was good times. I think that's it.
All right, so Dr. Lee does support a Future World watch party.
Okay.
So yeah, maybe Future World might give us at least some hints as to where they're going.
Maybe
with Westworld. Well, because I mean the Westworld movie didn't show us anything other than it showed the basis for the park that, like Charlotte said, the park is only for this.
Yeah.
And that's all the movie was.
Yeah.
So. All right, so I'm Andrew.
I'm Kate.
And
I'm Mark.
Mark's back there. We are the Knights of the Drunk Watch.
And now our watch has ended. Oh, talk, Andrew.
What?
It's our talk now. Not
Oh,
our watch.
shit, we're talking. I don't know. I was confused by cleaning the kitchen in the